Chris Trapasso is the NFL Draft and Young NFL Player Analyst for CBS Sports, where our good friend Dave Richard works. Chris Trapasso has a mock draft that I find fascinating up on CBSSports.com right now. Chris, thank you for joining us, sir.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We appreciate the time very much. I love your mock draft as it is interesting because it is unlike many others that I've seen. It will be interesting to Patriot fans. Let's start. You got Cam Ward number one. That's pretty much no matter who's at one, Cam Ward's going number one, correct?
That's what it feels like right now, especially because the Titans have done nothing with the quarterback market in free agency.
Yeah, and so regardless, maybe the Giants panic or something, but Cam Ward's going number one. If you were ranking quarterbacks, including last year's draft, can you kind of estimate where Cam Ward would have been ranked in there?
I actually wrote an article about this on CBSSports.com not that long ago, so that's the perfect question.
Thank you.
I had him ranked, I think, at 5 or 6, right in the Bo Nix range. I wasn't quite as high on Bo Nix as a lot of other people. He had a good season. I think a lot of it was him being handheld by Sean Payton and a lot of yards after the catch, but that's where I would have Cam Ward, not anywhere in the tier of Drake May, Jaden Daniels, even Caleb Williams.
And what about like Penix? You said 5, so like Penix and like where would you have had him like in terms of that? You had him ahead of Bo Nix, but below Penix, where and JJ McCarthy?
I would have him right in the range of Penix. I think a little bit ahead of Penix, and I would actually have Shedeur Sanders as 8 out of 8, like last place if we're counting the 6 first-rounders from last year and then the 2 perceived first-rounders in this year's draft.
Okay, so Cam Ward is one. You have Abdul Carter going number 2. That's a lot of people believe that as well. Now it gets interesting because at 3 and 5, sandwiched around the Patriots pick, you have 2 offensive linemen going. Everyone around here knows the Patriots are desperate for offensive line help, but a lot of people would be excited because you have the the lineman from Missouri, going number 3 to the Giants. Now, is he's a right tackle or a guard? How do you see him fitting in the NFL?
I think he could really play anywhere. I think he could play either tackle position.
Okay.
Now, Membu did play right tackle at Missouri. And what I've just learned doing this, I'm sure you guys know this too, covering the draft, March and April every year. The first round is all about traits. And Will Campbell came in with the short arms. He has better film and a better pedigree than Armand Membu, who I do have going number 3 overall to the Giants. But Membu is closer to like Tristan Wirfs in terms of his workout, his size, and his length. So I wouldn't be surprised, just like we saw in 2020 when Andrew Thomas was the first tackle ahead of a Tristan Wirfs and ahead of Jedrick Wills from Alabama, if it is actually Armand Membu, who kind of looks more like a franchise left tackle and tested like a franchise left tackle more so than Will Campbell from LSU.
Yeah, that's interesting, and he's a bigger kid. So now, look, so you got Travis Hunter going to the Patriots. Okay, do you think he's the best? I know, but do you think he's the best prospect in the draft?
I actually don't have him number 1. I have kind of an obscure player at number 1. I love James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee. But if we're just literally, like, if you're only asking me who's the best football player, forgetting about traits and positional value and all things like that, yes, Travis Hunter is the best football player in this draft.
Okay, do you see him playing receiver, cornerback, both? And if he plays one more than the other, what will that be?
That's the ultimate question, because going into even the combine, a few of the scouts that I know said, look, he's going to play corner, could give him some wide receiver packages, but he's mostly a corner. I viewed him truly down the middle. Like, I have 2 grades on Travis Hunter as a corner and as a wide receiver because he played both of them full time pretty famously last season at Colorado. And the nuance that he showed, running routes, tracking the football, getting open with just his athleticism, shoulder fakes, head fakes, really made me believe that this was not just an athlete that they were throwing out there at receiver. He kind of reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson when he was coming out of Ohio State a few years ago.
And that wouldn't be bad. I mean, that's a kid that's going to make a lot of money in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, you have Shedeur Sanders going 7 to the Jets, and you believe that would probably be an overdraft for him based on what you've just told me. Why the Jets taking him at 7?
I just feel like even though I'm lower on Shedeur Sanders, and I'm not in the vast minority, there's other draft analysts that feel similarly that he's more like a mid to late first round pick than a top 10 guy. I just feel like for as much as Sanders will probably drive some people away because of his dad and all the attention, all it takes is one team to actually be appealed by that to make the pick. And I don't think they have their answer on the roster with Justin Fields. Even if he plays better than expected, are they going to be ready to give him a big extension after this season? I don't think so. And with a new GM and a new head coach, even though they did obviously just sign Justin Fields in free agency, I think they're going to want someone in the draft that is cost controlled, that is younger, and represents more upside than Justin Fields.
Okay, you don't, to what I see, you don't have another quarterback going in the first round. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is heads above any other quarterback that would be taken after him?
No, I don't. I mean, I personally, so my mock drafts are not always aligned, and they're rarely aligned with my actual own evaluations. I think Jalen Milroe has been unfairly pushed down in this pre-draft process because of one player, Anthony Richardson, and the bad season that he had as the developmental guy that when he was picked in the top 5, that was the player that people wanted to select. They wanted the 6'4", 240-pound freak athlete with a raw game and a big arm. Jalen Milroe isn't as big as Anthony Richardson. The running skill is pretty close, and I think he's further ahead as a passer than Anthony Richardson was when he was coming out of Florida. He certainly played a lot more football at a higher level than Richardson did in the SEC. So I don't think if a team were to pick Jalen Milroe ahead of Shedeur Sanders in my own evaluation, I don't think that would be crazy. They're different in terms of floor and ceiling, but I think Jalen Milroe has quite the upside if he's brought along in kind of a Jalen Hurts type of way.
Didn't Milroe just run like a crazy ass 40? Like he just had like some insane time?
He ran 4.37 at the Alabama Pro Day. So he looks that fast on film. Now, I don't want to double count it, but a lot of times someone looks fast and they run 4.6 and you're like, they're not really that fast. He looks like a bigger version of Jalen Hurts and a more dynamic version of Jalen Hurts as a runner. And then he confirmed that by running, I mean, maybe it was low 4.4s if it was at the combine, but running 4.37 at the Alabama Pro Day, very impressive for the quarterback spot.
Chris, how would you grade this draft and the prospects out there in terms of like middle round wide receiver talent? Is there going to be as much, less, more this year than previous 2 or 3 years?
I would say that's the theme of this wide receiver class, that it's not top heavy, and it's been top heavy the last 4 or 5 years. We've had the Jamar Chases and even the Drake Londons and the Jalen Waddles go really early. The big names, even those Alabama receivers when Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy went, CeeDee Lamb, that's not this class. I mean, the Travis Hunter situation is one to certainly follow. If you want to call him a receiver, then you do have that guy. But I think second, third, fourth round, that is the sweet spot for wide receivers in this draft. We saw 6 or 7 receivers go in the first round last year. We're not going to come close to that this year. Day 2, and we've seen a lot of the smarter franchises do wait until the second round or third round to pick their receivers. You get better value there. That's where I feel like it's one of the better classes that we've seen, second round to say early to mid fourth round of this draft.
I wanted to get back to Shedeur Sanders for a second. And I happen to agree with you, Ed, that his talent does not merit a top 10 pick. It's probably lower down. But I saw 2 mock drafts yesterday, one from Mel Kiper and one from Daniel Jeremiah. They both had him in the top 3. And I don't know if they are hearing things or whatever, but this seems to be a wild overreach by desperate teams. How do you explain anyone thinking that Sanders is going to wind up in the top 3?
I always go back to, and this is kind of dating myself a little, back to the 2011 draft when Christian Ponder and Blaine Gabbert and Jake Locker went way earlier than everyone expected. It's exactly what you pointed out, that there are still 3 teams, I think, that have a clear need at quarterback: the Titans, the Giants, and there's one I'm totally and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like those teams could push these players up, where if Aaron Rodgers wants to not make a decision until training camp, and who knows what Russell Wilson is going to do, or how appealing either of those 2 quarterbacks still are, that's why it would ultimately happen. And I'll admit, of course, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper have more sources and more ins to the league than I do. So if they're going to continue to mock that all the way through April, then maybe there is a better chance that he is well overdrafted than he ultimately should be.
Yeah, Kuiper for some reason loves Sanders. I don't really know what the deal with that is.
Jeremiah plays it more down the middle, so to see him do that yesterday was very surprising.
Who knows? I'm more concerned about who these guys think is actually good, than what they're thinking. But so the way you have it, going back to the Patriots, is you have the two tackles or two offensive linemen sandwiched around the Patriots. Given the lack of elite talent in the first round in this draft, if you were a GM, would you be picking based on need that high in this draft, or would you just go best player available?
I would go best player available, and that's what I said earlier, that I think Travis Hunter, it's just if you're throwing out positional value, which is certainly baked into my evaluation process, I would just say that Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. And when you're a team like the Patriots, you can say, entering year 2 of the rebuilding process, even though there's a new head coach in Mike Vrabel there, just say, hey, look, we're eventually going to have to plug in players at all different positions. We're not dead straight at any spot. We don't have, marquee talent anywhere. Let's just pick the best player. If we try Travis Hunter at receiver and it doesn't work, we have a all-pro caliber cornerback, which we know is still very valuable in today's NFL.
All right. Well, look, so your suggestion to the Patriots is depth at the wide receiver position in the mid-rounds, second, third, fourth rounds. Well, second round's not a mid-round. But you think there's depth there, and to take the best player available. That's where you're landed.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is still a team that even after the additions of Milton Williams and Harold Landry and Carlton Davis, good veteran pieces that I think are going to help this team be more competitive. And it feels like everyone thinks that. This is not a team that needs to be picking based on specific needs this early in the pre-draft process. And I would always lean early on in a young quarterback's development. If you're kind of unsure, if you have two similar grades with a player, side with the player who is going to directly help your quarterback in Drake May. And I think Travis Hunter could do that. I mean, certainly you could say offensive tackle could as well, but bringing in Morgan Moses maybe mitigates that need a little. So I would always lean toward offense and helping your young quarterback first and foremost.
I would say that too, Chris. And also we were talking about this. Well, Fred and John and I have been talking about this for weeks, but it's not the obvious most tangible, safety precaution for Drake May to get a left tackle or someone on the offensive line. But having a receiver that can actually get open quickly is another way of protecting your quarterback, and I think that would be a good idea too.
1,000%. So I'm up in Buffalo, and I saw that I had a front row seat to that with Josh Allen. That in 2019, when he started to show that he could actually play in this league, and then before that huge breakout, the Bills didn't have the best offensive line in the NFL, but they signed John Brown and Cole Beasley, and all of a sudden the ball was coming out of his hands sooner. He wasn't taking as many hits, wasn't pressured as often. So for as much as the classic idea is, hey, protect your quarterback, draft as many offensive linemen, sign as many as you can, someone like Travis Hunter who can get open in a flash, that ultimately helps your quarterback and the protection around him a lot more.
And just real quick, Ted McMillan, where do you think he's going to be a number one receiver, elite receiver?
I don't know if I'll go elite. I do think number one for a team, the comparison that I have for him is somewhere in the range of T. Higgins and Drake London. And that's kind of right in that range where T. Higgins may be the best number 2 in the league. Drake London, a mid to lower tier wide receiver 1. His game, his size, strengths and weaknesses to me with Ted McMillan are very similar to those two veteran receivers.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris Trapasso. Trapasso. Jesus Christ.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's not that hard. I'm an idiot. Chris Trapasso. Thank you so much. Read him on CBSSports.com. Appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, guys.